Welcome everybody to the AI Guide, where we focus on the human impact of AI. So I did a short on this yesterday, but breaking news Friday, Sam Altman was booted out as CEO of OpenAI by the board of directors. At the same time, the board removed Greg Brockman from being chairman, but told him he could stay as president of the company. They said that Sam Altman and Greg Brockman were either removed or changed status for withholding critical information from the board. So let me engage in a little pure speculation about that. But the reason I'm doing this breaking news at the start is because I've said on my last 2 weeks of videos, I was going to do an episode on Sam Altman, and there's no time like the present. So real quickly before we get into that, will we ever know what exactly happened that made the board take this action? No, because corporations don't work that way. They will not disclose it. The lawyers told them exactly what they could and could not say in their press release. So we'll never know what actually happened. But as a thought experiment, this is pure speculation on my part, I thought of two possibilities. So one is that a letter was signed by OpenAI and many other people at the top of AI a few months ago about putting a 6-month pause on new foundation models being issued. And you guys may know that OpenAI very recently released what they call GPT-4 Turbo, which is a better model of GPT-4 supposedly. One guess on my part is that this was really GPT-5, and Sam Altman didn't tell the board that he was going to release what is essentially a new foundation model, because that's not in conformance with the letter signed that everyone agreed to, or almost everyone. And because he wasn't transparent with the board about actually what he was releasing, and Greg Brockman knew it, that's why he got removed as chairman in this thought exercise. The board discovered that this was actually new model in contravention of the 6-month pause and decided to boot him out for withholding that information. So this is one of the rare instances where a CEO can be relieved of duty, is not being transparent with the board. Other reasons are you get off kilter politically with the board, or the company starts to really do badly. Those are basically the three circumstances where a CEO ever gets relieved. All of those are rare. Most CEOs quit with golden parachutes. They're never fired. So this was really a big deal. But it leads, the second thought experiment is that maybe Brockman and Altman invented an AGI and didn't tell the board. That's my other pure wild guess. But as I said, we'll never know. But this is now the perfect time to do this segment on Sam Altman, because there's certain things that I'm going to discuss now that actually sort of frame what just happened. So I'm going to quote off of 2 articles here. One of them was a general discussion, I believe, in The Atlantic about Sam Altman, and the other was in a tech briefing magazine that I forgot. I read so many of them now, I can't remember which one. So with regard to what I believe was The Atlantic. So Sam Altman first came to prominence as the president of YC, the Combinator in San Francisco that's been hugely successful. This incubator, YC, fielded about 40,000 applications from startups a year. It heard in-person pitches from 1,000 of those. So think about that. The top people at YC were hearing 1,000 pitches a year. That's many a day. That's crazy. A couple of hundred got YC funding, usually around 125,000, along with mentoring and networking in exchange for giving YC 7% of the company. So these are very, very early stage companies, not even to seed funding. This is the people just have a pure, raw idea, and they give 7% of the company to YC to sort of frame out the idea. And then the article says running YC could be viewed as either the greatest job in Silicon Valley or among the worst. From the perspective of VCs, venture capitalists, some of whom, as one put it, spend a lot of time not working and instead calling in rich from their yachts, running YC is spending half the year essentially as a camp counselor for the companies that they bring in. Through much of his tenure, Altman lived with his brothers in either one of two houses in San Francisco. I'm doing this to give some background and idea on the person that Sam Altman appears to be. He preached a gospel of ambition, insularity, and scale. He believed in the value of hiring from the network of people you already know. He believed in not caring too much what other people think. Altman said, "A big secret is that you can bend the world to your will a surprising percentage of the time. Most people don't even try," he wrote on his blog. "The most successful founders do not set out to create companies. They're on a mission to create something closer to a religion." Altman believed the greater downside is cornering yourself with a small idea, not thinking big. So his beliefs are represented by a bunch of key ideas of entrepreneurship. The Power of Thinking Big, amazing book, read it. Using your network to leverage it to make a startup successful, and not caring what other people think. So next it says Altman had a pretty great life. He grew extremely rich running YC. He also embraced the techie catnip utilitarian philosophy of effective altruism. EA justifies making piles of money by almost any means necessary on the theory that its adherents knew best how to spend it. The ideology prioritized the future over the present and imagined a rapturesque singularity where humans and machines would merge. So this is a very, very interesting insight in the context of what just happened, right? It's not a stretch to see that someone with that philosophy could do something. In 2015, from deep within this framework, Altman co-founded OpenAI as a nonprofit with Elon Musk and 4 others. Ilya Sutskever, who I just saw at TED AI, CTO of OpenAI, who predicted AGI will be here in 2 to 5 years. That is the guy who should know. Also, Greg Brockman, the guy who was allowed to remain president of OpenAI, but removed as chairman and right after quit. John Schulman and Wojciech Zaremba. The nonprofit's mission to create a computer that can think like a human in every way and use that for maximal benefit of humanity. The idea was to build good AI and dominate the field before bad people built the bad kind. OpenAI promised to open source its research in line with EA values. So Elon Musk, as a co-founder, has issued many warnings on AI and also has a BCI brain computer interface company. Elon has spoken many, many times about co-opting AI for the good before it goes bad. However, keep in mind what we just learned about Sam Altman a minute ago. So then they talk about how Altman worked. Altman sent text and emails to founders each day, and he tracked how quickly people responded because, as he wrote on his blog, he believed response time was one of the most striking differences between great and mediocre founders. So at this time, OpenAI has been founded, but he's still working at YC. In 2017, Altman considered running for California governor. He published a platform called the United Slate, outlining 3 core principles: prosperity from technology, which you would expect from any technologist, economic fairness, and personal liberty. Altman abandoned his bid in a few weeks. Then early in 2018, Musk tried to take control of OpenAI, claiming the organization was falling behind Google. By February, Musk walked away, leaving Altman in charge. So this has been widely reported, a difference of opinion about how OpenAI should be run between Elon Musk and Sam Altman. But check this out. Several months later, in late May, Altman's father had a heart attack and died. At the funeral, Sam allotted each of the 4 Altman children 5 minutes to speak. His sister, Annie, used her time to rank her family members in terms of emotional expressivity. She put Sam, along with her mother, at the bottom. Altman published an essay called Moore's Law for Everything in March of 2021. My work at OpenAI reminds me every day about the magnitude of socioeconomic change that is coming sooner than most people believe. As you guys know, this is exactly why I started the AI Guide in 2020. If public policy doesn't adapt accordingly, most people will end up worse off than they are today. And I could foresee this by 2019, and that's why I started this channel in 2020. By the time Altman wrote this, he had left YC to focus on OpenAI full-time. One of the first things he did under his leadership in the spring of 2019 was to create a for-profit subsidiary. Building AI proved to be wildly expensive. Altman needed money. By summer, he'd raised $1 billion from Microsoft. Some employees quit, upset at the mission creep away from the maximal benefit for humanity. Instead, Microsoft would be driving the development of AI, basically. Yet the switch ruffled surprisingly few. So that comment proves what I've said over and over again. Technologists are in it to invent something cool. They do not care about what the side effects are. They don't care about what the effects on people are. There are only very, very rare exceptions to that rule. How do I know that? I've spent 30 years in technology now. At OpenAI, Altman declined to take equity in the company, and OpenAI initially capped profits of its investors at 100x, which is really an optics move, the article says, because 100 times $1 billion is a lot of money. Then this is an interesting comment, and I'm ignoring the politics, I'm just reading the article. If Elizabeth Warren comes and says like, oh, you turn this into a for-profit, you're an evil tech person, said Sam Altman's friend, everybody in tech is going to just be like, go home. Second point proving my premise. So they said during this time, Altman continued racing his cars. He purchased a $27 million home in San Francisco's Russian Hill. He's obviously making quite a bit of money. Altman gestated a clutch of side projects preparing for an AI-transformed world. He invested $375 million in Helion Energy, a speculative nuclear fusion company. If Helion works, a long shot, Altman hopes to control one of the world's cheapest energy sources. He invested $180 million in retro biosciences. The goal is to add 10 years to the human lifespan. Altman also conceived and raised $115 million for WorldCoin. WorldCoin is scanning everyone's eye to give them a crypto account. This would solve two AI-created problems at once: distinguishing humans from non-humans, necessary once AI has further blurred the line between them, BCI, and doling back out some of the capital once companies like OpenAI have sucked most of it up. So on that point, there's been a lot of press about huge wealth and power being concentrated courtesy of AI in a very few companies, which is not to the general public's advantage. Said tech writer and podcaster Jathan Sadowski, this is not the portfolio of a man with ambitions like Zuckerberg, who appears somewhat quaintly compared with Altman to be content with building a city-state to rule over. This is the portfolio of a man with ambitions like Musk, a man taking the imperialist approach. I'll have wrap-up comments in a second. Then the other article has this line in it, which I think is perfectly on target with what just happened with regard to Sam Altman. Sometimes amorality is what distinguishes a winning CEO or product over the rest, a former colleague said. He could scale faster and build products without getting caught up in the messiness. And he was talking about Zuckerberg there, but the same is true of Altman in this guy's opinion. Altman paraphrased Oppenheimer by saying, "Technology happens because it's possible." Altman could not have been surprised then that Christopher Nolan in his biography did not create a work of boosterism. So now, wrap-up comments. So Sam Altman is someone who, by multiple accounts, is in it for himself. And he certainly doesn't care what happens to the general public as a result of what he's doing. Read the biography for more on this. So really, when you consider this talk that I was going to do anyway, because I wanted to talk about what people are saying, what the CEO of OpenAI, the leading AI company in the world at the moment, is like. In the 3 weeks between the time I decided to do this video and actually doing it, there was a blow up within OpenAI. Now, that's a whole other interesting thing. Basically, two things are going to happen. The future for OpenAI is uncertain. They still have their CTO, who was really driving all the progress there. So things may work out, but when something like this happens at a company, it's pretty binary. Either the company starts to fade away and fades into obscurity, or it's a turning point for the better for the company, one or the other. And there's no way to predict that ahead of time. We'll all find out together. So that's number one. Number two is, it's without a doubt that Sam Altman and Greg Brockman will start another AI venture to continue on the path they were originally on. And without anyone else's oversight, they can pretty much do what they want to do. And they certainly have the money now to do this all on their own. So this is very interesting. The future cannot be determined by these events. We all have to wait and see what happens. But one thing is for sure, nothing, absolutely nothing is going to stop what's happening with AI. This is going to have a lot of effects on human beings. Next week, I'm going to do a video on some of the potential beneficial effects of AI progressing, but that's next week. Other things are in motion that are not going to be stopped. BCI, see the short we did this week. The path to AGI, nothing will stop that. And the future post-AGI is very uncertain. It will require the entire world to come together and act in unison. Why is that problematic? I just saw a different video that said that the world is sort of becoming more fractured. One of the outputs of that is there's more and more wars going on now than there has been in many years. Like before 10 years ago, the 50 years before that were very peaceful, relatively speaking. Not, but relatively to human history. Why? Because there were still people alive that remembered World War I and World War II because they had lived through it. Keep in mind that almost everyone who was in World War I is dead. Almost everyone who was in World War II is dead. People are remarkably bad at forgetting the lessons of history. So I only mention this because for the world to come together and act in unison with regard to AI is a bit of a stretch at the moment, given the friction between the three big powers, the US, Russia, and China, and others, and this sort of interregional competition and all of the other wars going on, like Ukraine, there's several in Africa, Afghanistan happened recently, you know, there's a bunch of stuff. So anyway, we'll all find out what happens together. But I think that it's very important to understand who the people are that are running these big companies that are working on AI. And this is a great episode on the leading guy in AI until 2 days ago. Thanks. Take care. See you next time. Bye.